Well, just yesterday, we talked about a very interesting leak that did appear for Nintendo Switch Online, with an unannounced game being Metroid Zero Missions looking very likely to hit the service soon, as well as support for the Game Boy Link cable feature being set to be enabled on all games that support it. But to my surprise, shortly after that video went live, later in the evening, Nintendo announced a brand new update to the base tier service of NSO for NES, SNES, and new Game Boy games. And in today's video, we need to break down exactly what this update is and what, if anything, this signals to us as paying Nintendo Switch Online subscribers when it comes to our expectations around the update roadmap schedule of all the various consoles that are supported on the service right now. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below, hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. Now guys, today's video would have been very different if I did not lose power. I am currently filming off my laptop in a completely pitch black room. We were going to play these games together, but instead, Mother Nature had other plans, so I will be off camera and racing against the clock before this laptop battery dies to get the video out to you all today, so make sure you hit the like button on this one. But just to first get on the same page with the update that did indeed hit NSO late last night, with no rhyme or reason or warning, Nintendo just likes to make these things go live. I also mentioned that we don't have any kind of heads up around when these updates are going to take place, because once upon a time we could look at a maintenance bot and see that maintenance was scheduled for multiple NSO applications, and it gives you a little bit of a heads up on what to expect and what systems will be getting updates. Now Nintendo has figured out how to dodge that, so when they say something goes live, it just goes live, and you can download the update and hop in and check out which games are available. And to get on the same page with that information, let's quickly hop over to My Nintendo News and read through their detailed typed up article together. 4 more retro games available for Nintendo Switch Online members. A little more than a couple weeks ago, Nintendo added Metroid Fusion to Nintendo Switch Online Plus Expansion Pack Game Boy Advance library. Because of this, it was only a matter of time before other libraries received some additions of their own. Well, that has happened. Nintendo has announced that 3 retro libraries have received additional games tonight. Kirby's Dream Land 2 and Burger Time Deluxe are available in the Game Boy library. Meanwhile, Nintendo added Side Pocket to the SNES library and Xevious to the NES collection. You can see Nintendo's announcement tweet down below. 4 classic Game Boy, Super NES, and NES titles are now live for Nintendo Switch Online members. Game Boy getting Kirby's Dream Land 2 and Burger Time Deluxe, Super NES getting Side Pocket, and NES getting Xevious. Now, to first focus in on the good news side of this update, it is reassuring to see Nintendo pumping out support for these new consoles relatively soon after they were announced, because you may realize that these consoles just went live at the most recent Nintendo Direct, which was held in February, and we are already seeing them turn around and support all of the additional platforms that were unveiled at that event, with Metroid Fusion being the first GBA game, and now we have a couple additional Game Boy games with some NES and SNES. The bad news about it is, while there are some major titles that I'm looking forward to on the Game Boy, like the Zelda Oracle games, and I do think that that link cable support will definitely play into how we get the true ending to those titles, it is quite clear to me that with this update, we can expect quality Game Boy games on the horizon. But when it comes to NES and SNES library of games, Nintendo is clearly not willing to pay any of the licensing fees that are required to get some of the fan favorite games that are missing out there. We don't have Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars. We don't have a lot of the different Mickey Mouse games, Goof Troop, Star Wars. Anything that requires a sizable payment to a third party to renew licensing fees seems to be an afterthought, and instead we are definitely getting those more bottom of the barrel discount bin style games that you would find in a used game store, as opposed to the big name heavy hitters that are still missing from the service today. And that's kind of where I'm setting my expectations. Until Nintendo proves us wrong, I don't think that we can expect any massive updates to the NES and SNES library of games, and rather, if you are a base tier subscriber, you should definitely be setting your expectations for bigger additions in terms of the Game Boy library, as that's where Nintendo has the most room to add value simply and cheaply at this point in time, and I think that that's the course that we ultimately see them stick to. In terms of frequency, this is actually a very good month for NSO updates, because while we are still missing an N64 game being added into the service, we have Game Boy Advance, Game Boy, NES, and SNES all updated. If we could get Genesis or N64, it very well could set an exciting precedent that in certain months we would just see an across the board content library update. And whether you're a fan of the games or not, I do think that that would be a fantastic cadence for Nintendo to follow. I am still eagerly awaiting the potential for an N64 game to drop in the month of March. If it does not, I do think that this does indeed signal that we will likely see Nintendo stick to one or the other when it comes to monthly updates for GBA and N64. We get a GBA game one month, we don't get one the next month, and we get N64 instead. And that goes back and forth. That's kind of where I'm setting my expectations in terms of updates. But this additional base library content update that hit today is an exciting one because it shows that Nintendo is willing to update multiple content libraries in the same month in this new environment of NSO that we are in, with essentially 6 different rotating consoles, or 7 if you count Game Boy Color as its own, but it's not its own separate emulation app, so we'll rope that in and say 6 different consoles right now are getting content updates potentially, and that's an exciting prospect. While you don't technically own these games, and it is an ongoing subscription model that definitely some people are not a fan of, I do like to definitely have the type of flexibility we have to boot them up on the go whenever we want, not to mention the good news roadmap that we've received from Nintendo. That Nintendo account not only transfers forward into next generation, but the value added services that Nintendo has created with Nintendo account will also roll forward, and that spells good news for Nintendo Switch Online. We're not going to have to reset our libraries from scratch again and rebuy everything that we'd already played on Virtual Console. Like, I loved Virtual Console. I love the format of it. I wish Nintendo would give us a option to actually pay for these titles individually and not have to be subscribed. I think in a perfect world, we would have a subscription model plus Virtual Console one-off purchases, but if I had to take one or the other with the kind of content library we're starting to get as NSO is continuing to age, I'm actually more happy as an NSO subscriber because I don't have to worry about resetting this when it comes to the next generation transition that we're likely not far away from in the Nintendo Switch era that we find ourselves in today, just with how long the current hardware has been sold and available on the market. And if you're telling me that we're starting off the Nintendo Switch 2 or whatever is next with all the games that we already have, plus maybe then they start to ramp up some bigger support for things like NES and SNES, and maybe we see additional consoles hit the next generation platform like GameCube and Sega Dreamcast, they can really go all out on this thing and make it a no-brainer for any Nintendo user to ultimately subscribe to the service. But I really want to hear from you guys at this point in the video, your personal thoughts and opinions around NSO today. What did you think about this latest round of updates? Are you a fan of any of the games on this update? Will you be booting up and playing through any of them? Kirby Dream Land 2 is definitely the one that I will be playing through out of this list, and definitely let me know what you hope we see in terms of future content roadmap updates when it comes to things like update frequency, as well as what kind of missing games are still there today that Nintendo hasn't acknowledged that you want to see brought over, and when do you think we get anything like additional systems added into the service, because I definitely think that what we have today is going to take us through the end of the Nintendo Switch's life cycle, but I would love to hear if you think differently than that. So regardless of your thoughts and feelings on everything we talked about today, I do look forward to hearing from you all in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around this topic. Go watch yesterday's video next if you haven't already, which is on screen right now. Also make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.